The morning sun burned down on the perfectly trimmed lawns of Maple Grove Estates, but no one noticed the old gardener wiping sweat from his forehead. People only noticed mistakes in that neighborhood. And today, the HOA president was hunting for one. Miguel pushed his rusty mower slowly along the sidewalk. His faded green uniform looked older than some of the trees in the community. The sleeves were stitched by hand. His boots were cracked from years of work. Residents passed him without eye contact. Some treated him like part of the scenery. Others treated him worse. A black luxury SUV suddenly stopped beside him. The window rolled down. "Hey, gardener." Miguel looked up calmly. Inside sat Veronica Hale, the president of the Maple Grove HOA, perfect makeup, diamond earrings, cold eyes. She pointed aggressively toward a tiny pile of grass clippings near the curb. "What is that?" Miguel removed his gloves slowly. "I was about to clean it, ma'am." "You were about to," she snapped. "This community pays for excellence, not laziness." Several residents nearby slowed down to watch. Miguel nodded politely. "I understand." But Veronica wasn't done. "You people always say that," she muttered loudly. The atmosphere changed instantly. A few residents exchanged uncomfortable looks. Miguel stayed quiet. Veronica stepped out of the SUV dramatically. "Do you know how much these homes cost?" she demanded. "People here expect standards." Miguel bent down and started gathering the clippings into a bag. "I'll handle it." "That's not the point." Now more people were watching from porches. One woman even started recording on her phone. Veronica noticed the attention and leaned into it. "You workers think you can do whatever you want because decent people stay silent." Miguel paused for the first time. Still calm. Still respectful. But his eyes changed slightly. He stood up slowly. "I apologize if I upset you." Veronica laughed mockingly. "Upset me? You embarrassed yourself." A teenage boy nearby whispered to his mother, "Why's she acting like that?" The mother quietly pulled him away. Miguel picked up his tools carefully. Then Veronica noticed his old pickup truck parked nearby. Rust around the edges. Faded paint. One headlight slightly cracked. She smirked. "That thing belongs in a junkyard." Some residents laughed nervously. Miguel simply opened the truck bed and loaded his equipment. Veronica crossed her arms. "You know what? I'm filing a formal complaint. Maybe they'll finally replace you with someone professional." Miguel gave a small nod. "As you wish." And then he drove away. No anger. No argument. No revenge. Just silence. But silence can be dangerous when people mistake it for weakness. That afternoon, Veronica sat inside the luxurious clubhouse holding an emergency HOA meeting. About 20 residents attended. Coffee cups. Laptops. Fake smiles. The usual. Veronica stood confidently at the front. "We need to discuss declining standards in this community." She clicked through a slideshow. Photos of garbage cans left out too long. Children drawing chalk near sidewalks. Grass slightly uneven. And finally, a photo of Miguel mowing lawns. "This man represents the image of our neighborhood," Veronica announced dramatically. "And frankly, it's unacceptable." An older resident frowned. "Isn't he just the landscaping contractor?" "Exactly," Veronica replied. "Contractor replaceable." Another board member shifted uncomfortably. "He's been working here for years, though." Veronica rolled her eyes. "And he's reliable." "He's cheap," she corrected. "That's different." Then she smiled coldly. "I already contacted a premium landscaping company." She passed around brochures, expensive uniforms, luxury branding, triple the price. One resident looked shocked. This would raise HOA fees significantly. Quality costs money. The room fell quiet. Then an elderly resident named Harold slowly spoke. Miguel helped my wife during her stroke last year. Veronica looked annoyed. What does that have to do with landscaping? He stayed with her until the ambulance came. A few residents nodded. Another woman added quietly, he fixed my sprinkler system for free. And he brings groceries to Mrs. Collins every Friday, someone else said. Veronica slammed the folder shut. This is exactly the problem. You people get emotionally attached instead of maintaining standards. Harold stared directly at her. No, we just remember who treats people with dignity. For a moment, tension filled the room. But Veronica smiled again. Cold, calculated. Fine, then let's vote. Hands slowly rose. Some reluctantly. Some under pressure. But enough. Miguel was officially terminated. Veronica leaned back proudly. Excellent. Outside the clubhouse window, thunder clouds gathered in the distance. And far across town, Miguel sat quietly inside a private office on the top floor of a downtown skyscraper. The contrast was shocking. Floor-to-ceiling windows, luxury furniture, a city view worth millions. A young assistant entered carefully. Sir, the board from Maple Grove terminated the contract. Miguel remained calm while reviewing financial reports. I expected that. The assistant hesitated. Should I notify the legal team? No. The acquisition team. Miguel finally looked up. Not yet. The assistant nodded respectfully. On the office wall hung the name. Mendoza Urban Development Group, one of the largest real estate investment companies in the state. Miguel Mendoza, founder and CEO. The assistant smiled slightly. They have no idea who you are, do they? Miguel looked out the window quietly. No. Why keep pretending to be the gardener? Miguel's eyes softened. My father was a gardener. Silence. He taught me something important. You learn more about people when they think you're beneath them. The assistant nodded slowly. Miguel closed the file. Prepare the Maple Grove documents. Are you moving forward? Yes. The assistant's expression changed. Once the redevelopment plan becomes public, their property values could collapse. Miguel stood slowly. They humiliated a worker in front of children. His voice remained calm, but colder now. They made their choice. Back in Maple Grove, Veronica celebrated. Wine glasses clinked inside her mansion. A few HOA members gathered around laughing. To higher standards, Veronica toasted proudly. Everyone drank, but one man at the party looked uneasy. Thomas Reed, a local real estate agent. He had recognized Miguel earlier. At first he thought it was impossible. But now, his stomach twisted. Thomas quietly pulled out his phone. He searched a company profile. And there it was. Miguel Mendoza, billion-dollar developer. Magazine covers. Business awards. Photos with governors and investors. Thomas nearly dropped his drink. No way. Veronica noticed him. What? Thomas looked pale. That gardener. What about him? I think you fired the owner of Mendoza Urban Development. The room went silent. Then laughter exploded. Veronica nearly choked on her wine. The gardener. I'm serious. Another guest scoffed. Come on. Thomas turned the phone around. The laughter slowly died. The photo showed Miguel in a suit beside major city officials. Same face, same eyes, same man. Veronica stared at the screen. Her smile disappeared. That's impossible. Thomas swallowed hard. Mendoza Urban Development recently bought land around Maple Grove. Now nobody was laughing. One HOA member whispered nervously, "Why would a billionaire mow lawns?" Thomas answered quietly, "Maybe because he wanted to." Veronica grabbed the phone aggressively. "No, this has to be fake." But deep down, fear had already entered the room. The next morning, panic spread through Maple Grove faster than wildfire. Residents gathered outside homes whispering. Phones buzzed nonstop. Emails flew between HOA members. Veronica sat frozen at her kitchen island reading article after article about Miguel Mendoza. Net worth estimates, business acquisitions, political influence, luxury developments. Every article made her breathing worse. Then her phone rang. She answered immediately. "Hello." "Veronica," said a nervous board member, "we have a problem." "What now?" Mendoza Urban Development filed paperwork with the city. Her chest tightened. "For what?" "Commercial redevelopment zoning." Silence. "That land around Maple Grove," he continued shakily, "they own almost all of it." Veronica stood abruptly. "That's impossible. It's public record." Her wine glass slipped from her hand and shattered across the floor. "What does redevelopment zoning mean?" The board member hesitated. "Construction." "How bad?" "A luxury mixed-use project." Her face went pale. "Traffic?" "Yes." "Noise?" "Yes." "Property values?" "Could go down temporarily during development." Veronica gripped the counter. "No." Then came the final blow. And the new access road might cut directly through the community entrance. She sat down slowly. Everything she built her reputation on, perfect image, exclusive appearance, quiet luxury, could disappear because of the man she humiliated. Meanwhile, Miguel calmly walked through a massive construction site downtown, wearing a clean business suit. Executives followed him nervously. He reviewed blueprints while workers greeted him warmly. Unlike Veronica, he knew every worker's name. "How's your daughter doing, Marcus?" "Better now, sir." "Good." Another worker approached. "Mr. Mendoza, the crane inspection passed." "Excellent work." The workers respected him. Not because of fear, because he respected them first. His assistant approached with a tablet. "Maple Grove residents are requesting a meeting." Miguel kept walking. "And Veronica Hale?" "She personally asked to apologize." Miguel said nothing. The assistant studied him carefully. "You could destroy that HOA if you wanted." Miguel stopped walking. Construction noise echoed around them. "I'm not interested in revenge." "Then why move forward with the project?" Miguel looked across the city skyline. "Because communities built on arrogance eventually collapse anyway." That evening, Maple Grove held another emergency meeting. This time, the mood was completely different. No confidence, no arrogance, only fear. Residents argued loudly. "You embarrassed him publicly." "How were we supposed to know?" "We should have treated him decently regardless." Veronica stood at the front looking exhausted. "We need to stay calm." An angry resident pointed at her. "This is your fault." Others joined in immediately. You pushed the vote. You insulted him. You called him trash. Veronica slammed the table. Enough. But nobody feared her anymore. Not now. Harold slowly stood up again. You know the saddest part. The room quieted. He was probably testing us. Silence. And we failed. Veronica's jaw tightened. We can still fix this. How? Someone snapped. By pretending to care now that he's rich. Nobody answered. Because everyone knew it was true. 3 days later, Veronica arrived nervously at Mendoza Urban Development headquarters. Her expensive heels clicked against marble floors. Employees moved around efficiently. Professional. Elegant. Powerful. The receptionist smiled politely. Do you have an appointment? Yes, Veronica Hale. The receptionist checked the system. Yes, ma'am. Mr. Mendoza will see you shortly. Veronica sat down anxiously. Then she noticed something strange. Several workers entering the building greeted Miguel warmly when they passed his office. Maintenance staff, security guards, janitors, they all smiled naturally around him. No fear, no tension. Respect, real respect. Finally, the assistant approached. Mr. Mendoza is ready. Veronica entered slowly. Miguel sat behind a massive desk overlooking the city. But his expression remained the same as before. Calm, simple, controlled. He gestured toward a chair. Please. Veronica forced a nervous smile. I wanted to apologize. Miguel listened quietly. What happened at Maple Grove was inappropriate. Miguel nodded once. Yes. She swallowed hard. I didn't know who you were. His eyes locked onto hers. That's the problem. The words hit harder than shouting ever could. Veronica looked away. Miguel continued calmly. You believed kindness depended on status. No. You humiliated a worker publicly because you thought he lacked power. Veronica had no response. Miguel stood slowly and walked toward the window. When I worked beside your residence, some people offered water during hot days. He turned slightly. Some ignored me. Then his eyes hardened. And some enjoyed treating me like less than human. Veronica's face burned with shame. I'm sorry. Miguel nodded thoughtfully. I believe you are. Hope appeared briefly in her eyes. Then he continued. But apologies become convenient when consequences arrive. Silence filled the office. Finally, Veronica whispered, What happens now? Miguel looked down at the city below. The project continues. Her heart sank. Please. For years, Miguel interrupted softly, your HOA finds single mothers over flower pots. He turned back toward her. You threatened elderly residents over mailbox colors. Every sentence felt like a knife. And you publicly humiliated workers trying to feed their families. Veronica's eyes watered. Miguel's voice remained calm. I grew up poor. My father cleaned gardens until his hands bled. He slowly removed an old photograph from his desk drawer. A man in gardening clothes, smiling beside a young Miguel. He taught me that dignity costs nothing. Veronica stared silently. Miguel placed the photo back carefully. But some people are too wealthy to afford basic humanity. The words shattered her. For the first time in years, Veronica truly felt small. Not because someone humiliated her. Because someone showed her exactly who she had become. Weeks passed. Construction planning moved forward. Maple Grove residents became increasingly desperate. Some blamed Veronica openly. Others regretted staying silent during the humiliation. Harold became one of the few people willing to speak honestly. At a community gathering, he addressed the residents quietly. This neighborhood had a chance. Everyone listened. We met a man with character and judged him by his uniform. A woman lowered her head. Harold continued. And now everyone acts shocked because he turned out rich. He shook his head sadly. That's not the tragedy. Then what is? Someone asked. The tragedy is that basic respect should never depend on bank accounts. Silence spread across the crowd, because nobody could argue with him. Meanwhile, Miguel visited his father's grave one quiet morning. Fresh flowers rested beside the stone. He stood there silently for a long time. Then he spoke softly. "You were right, Papa." Wind moved gently through the cemetery trees. Miguel smiled faintly. People reveal themselves when they think nobody important is watching. His phone buzzed. The assistant again. "Sir, city officials approved Phase 1. Miguel nodded. "I'll be there shortly." Before leaving, he looked once more at the grave. "They laughed at your profession." His expression hardened slightly. "But they begged your son for mercy." Then he walked away. Months later, Maple Grove looked different. Construction near the area had begun. Traffic increased. Noise-filled mornings. Some residents moved away. Others stayed and adapted. But something else changed too. The HOA lost power. Residents demanded reforms. Veronica resigned quietly after mounting backlash. Nobody defended her. One afternoon, a new landscaping crew arrived at the community entrance. A young worker struggled with heavy equipment. An elderly resident immediately walked over. "Need help?" The worker smiled gratefully. Another resident brought cold drinks for the crew. Then another. And another. Slowly, the culture changed. Not perfectly, but noticeably. Harold watched from his porch with a small smile. Maybe people only learn when consequences hurt enough. Far away, Miguel stood at the opening ceremony of a massive community project. Affordable housing, public parks, scholarship programs, jobs for hundreds of workers. Reporters gathered around him. One journalist asked, "Mr. Mendoza, what inspired your focus on worker dignity?" Miguel paused thoughtfully. Then he smiled softly. "My father was a gardener." The crowd listened closely. "He taught me that the way people treat workers says everything about their character." Cameras flashed. "And sometimes," Miguel added quietly, "the people you look down on are the ones holding your future in their hands." Across town, Veronica watched the interview alone in silence. No anger remained now. Only regret. Because for the first time, she understood something too late. The poor gardener she humiliated had never been beneath her. Her character had been beneath his all along.